You're what it is.
Amen, I agree. I've been through that course. I don't understand why we ever thought it was a good idea.
No, you don't mean.
Yeah, I mean, strike one, strike two.
Okay, I'm not gonna.
That's true. Most of the can, so.
I didn't tell him. That's what I said. He loves her.
He does have his door closed a lot. He did put up one of those super blind doors. What, we all gonna give a birthday to each other? This is what I learned. They went through their more skills. So they, same thing, they put a bunch of constraints on it, and they was, from what I understand. But if we get started in the Lego, by next Friday, I guess. That may still like one session. So each thing is all there, which is essentially something. Red off. So much. He seriously had, you haven't seen it off in the fire. So these are normal ones. He's got this, it's like bulletproof to me. It's like this big sheet of. How did they go? He has these holes. He does door, and it's this door is pretty closed. I feel like getting on laser. I don't think you're ever going to pin him down. At all. I think that's the point. Just like the marble.
He told me to be good.
You got fast pictures around.
Really get.
That's what
It's a big burden to put on.
The guy just, I may be wrong, but this is my
Presentation is
something
gonna
take.
Yeah.
Don't take it literally,
It's going to be that simple.
if you can only get.
You know, the customer, you interpret randomly, there's three.
Yeah.
Because that's eventually, operate a lot. There you go. Got some very tough range. That's why I told Bobby from the beginning, I was like, well, I'd rather see that than but performance actually, after they're kind of part of the, share your part of the problem. If you, if we go back. Okay, I think we're not doing it great. All we're doing is just identifying how bad it is. It's just, some of the things we talked about in our Lego exercise, we're giving him reaction. But if you go to action board,
Yeah.
and then that person goes and change the one person. Now essentially you change to. No. I'm still struggling.
That's like being married.
I felt good about
Say that now.
Yeah, you learn.
At least $3 here to get me a green tea.
Just
I thought 4 times without my participation. I was expecting more. And I thought, I mean, I really didn't read through a lot of John's lanes to see.
I wasn't impressed at all.
Well, you got me a green tea, so here's $2.
Like, I don't want to read the list. It was like, well, I went to this personality class and they talk about how people do their list making. And list makers write their list. And he's not, so, you know.
Oh, no, we've heard him. What did all this?
Got me a little late.
I don't know, I have my little broken kindergarten program today, so I just walked in. Yeah, he walked in. No, I was afraid to open it.
What was the gist of it? I was like, was he fussing at you or motivating you? What?
I think he's trying to motivate us. We're
I mean, I
supposed,
said, I just,
he wants us to give a presentation to 5 people.
A 4-hour presentation.
Well, I don't think it has to be 4 hours, but he wants us to give a presentation. And I think a lot of people are resistant to
for your capstones? Oh, for the class. So he wants at least 5 people to watch it?
Right.
And do they have to be from Y12?
Yeah.
The big people you influence.
It's good. And so were you guys resisting it when he was trying to motivate you? I didn't know what he was, what.
He's helping our blood pressure out this morning.
I think it kind of caught me off guard just to be in the last day of class and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, here's something to do.
He's good, though. The one thing about Rupi is he cares about everybody's future. So he does. If he pushes you, he does it in your own best interest, I believe. Even if it is hard.
I'm paid for by production. It's hard to convince people to use overhead for something.
So how many people does he want? All, the
He
whole
wants 5 people.
from Y12?
Oh, they're on
Not from my
Well,
each
from
organization.
each whoever you listed wants.
Okay, so you can't just get your peers in here.
No.
That's a challenge, yeah. Is he going to come out to Y12?
Said he wanted to.
Okay, well then, so you're basically asking everybody to give an hour, perhaps,
No,
and sit and
he
listen.
said a 4-hour presentation for 5 people.
I don't think it's realistic, but
Yeah, she's now explaining, not literally, so.
Not literally.
I mean, they're,
The time or the presentation?
the time.
that's what we understood. It's like,
I'll have a hard time getting
But
it.
at least your supervisor should be willing to give you that time, you know? I mean, they should care enough.
Like I said, I'm paid for by production. They didn't even want me to go
Yeah,
to the
so-
They're gonna
meeting.
say, I need a charge code before I can come in and say.
So, he just was asking us to sit in 5 people who we influenced, so we did, and then today he said, the people you listed are the ones I want you to give this presentation to. So, I don't have control over their time at work, and the company is very adamant about the way we charge. I could probably find 5 people that I could say, hey, could you do
List, yeah.
this? But if it's gonna be these specific people, I'm not their
listened.
leader.
Could you go talk to them individually? Is that okay?
Well, you know.
I didn't know who to put that.
Yeah, so that's how I would like that, because I could see, like, even, you know, somebody 2 levels up from you is probably willing to listen to you for
Well,
10
and,
minutes.
yeah, and he got into, you know, managements don't listen for more than 15 minutes to these presentations. I think they wait for months, and it's like, okay, so my level, I didn't say my level of influence was as significant as he seemed to think I was projecting on this, because I can talk to them for a 15-minute presentation or just talk about the program, lead for that amount of time. I think I could hold their interest, but for 4 hours, they have too much to do.
Yeah, no, you could, but you could get 10. You could get 10 minutes and
Maybe I
3
could-
view graphs.
Yeah.
I mean seriously. I mean I know what you're talking, especially if it's 2 or 3 levels up.
But, you know, I'm continually told about charting time at Y12, you know, we don't do overhead, we have to save money, da-da-da. It's like,
Management team. Mike's got Tyndall and Smith.
Yeah, I listed Tyndall and Morgan Smith. So.
You're right. I mean, I know how it is. I know how it is to get
so,
But if you could modify it, and you could just go in and talk to them individually.
How did he get
that
on my
would
agenda?
satisfy it.
Somebody get this guy fired.
That's hard, yeah. Well, I thought today, because Alberto is not coming, Dr. Garcia's not coming.
By the way, I
today,
need to
right?
block off half your day today.
Yeah, so I thought I'd just sit here, like it short, just the
I brought 2
hour.
bagels.
Just do the view graphs and then we'll get out here. I guess is food coming? Is-
Yeah, I think we're getting some food today.
Yeah, let's just, because this chapter, I don't have any homework out of this chapter, and it's a good chapter. I had fun, I just wrote all the acronyms. It's the acronym chapter. MRP, DRP, AGP, VOM, critical ratio, those things. And so, it'll be a fun chapter from that perspective. But it's a good one just to look over, look at the definitions, and see some of the techniques they're using, some of the calculations they do. Just get, put it in your mind and to know, but it's not, it doesn't have to be memorized, I think. So Ruby's still out there, should we bring him in and ask him?
he said he's on the
Bring him back in.
Okay.
One of those reverse psychology.
Let's see. Indeed, yes.
One thing yesterday.
It wasn't yesterday. I had a really good excuse. I actually did email him. If you would have came in at 10 minutes after 5 minutes, and came in at 11 minutes after 5 minutes, you'd have no idea what the heck was going on.
Yeah, I was like,
I would put down my neighbors. Just made up some names. This is
He did eventually say his glasses are
the
You
Explorer.
come back in, or Ron, you back up.
Lego mouse.
This is Diego.
Tell him that he's sometimes mean. He's, it's not on his meds
That's
correctly.
the only 2 things you need for your
He's not giving us eyes now.
So anyway, this is a good chapter. We'll just touch the surface of this chapter and look at how they're doing it. So
project.
what they're trying to do is
But if you want to get great,
good, fine. Tie what we've done with the forecasting to a master schedule and do material requirements planning. So you got a master schedule, and you're going to have a bill of materials that's related to either the products or product in this master schedule, and you're going to relate that to what you need down on the production floor. And so you're going to take your bill of materials and explode it. That's one of the things they're going to do, and they're going to look at when do you need to place orders. So they're going to work backwards through the bill of materials, and when do you need to place orders to get things at a certain time, and how does that relate to your inventory, and also how does that relate to what you could promise in the future, so how your inventory is getting consumed. So to me, it's a nice chapter when you're looking at amount to promise, bill of materials, how these things all relate. And so from an experience viewpoint, this is what we did when we were building the UPF model for Y12. We had to look at the bill of materials for all the products that would go through a new Y12. Not so much. I mean, of course, all the things we make, but all the things we repair. All the things you make to store, all of those things. When you look at a bill of materials, it's got everything that goes into it, from the top level thing that's completed to the sub-assemblies, to the components, to things that are shipped, to things you purchase, to things that you pull out of storage. And so you can see how this sort of thing is pervasive in the manufacturing environment, and being able to make these calculations makes sense. So you'll see very clearly their examples. They've got 2 or 3 good examples, one with snow blowers and one with the Alpine Ski Company and a restoration center. And they use critical ratio also to decide when to work on jobs, which I think is a nice technique. It was real simple. Now, there were these simple calculations that you can use, like, wow, this is good. So this will be a fun chapter. And interestingly enough, it's funny, y'all were talking about the cultural change and trying to get cultural change. And when I think back on using the build materials and trying to build the model for the UPF, that was one of the few cultural changes I saw at Y12 when I worked out there. When I first started on the simulation modeling back in the early part of 2000, 2003, 2004, most people didn't really like it. They didn't, this is hooey, how can we figure out production rates and things like that? And two things I thought made a cultural shift, because we were having a hard time sometimes selling it to Y12 management. And one of the things, they had a particular question about whether they needed to refurbish a machine or not, and it was a several $1 million refurbishment. And we did a real quick model, like 2 or 3 days. The reason we could do that is because we did have all of this data already, the information. And we were able to show that, no, don't spend the $2 million, just go ahead and change some of your operational rules, and you can get the same improvement in throughput. And that was really a nice one, because they were able to go and say, look, let's not spend this $2 million. That was a big, and so that was one of the key managers saw this, wow, this is good. So then when it came time for them to early on start planning on the UPF, and the group was small, there wasn't but about a dozen of us working on it, they said, let's use this simulation modeling. And one of the things I felt like that made a huge difference in the cultural shift was we got all the key managers on UPF early on involved in the modeling. So we would have them come to our meeting once a week, which was amazing that we could do that. But to see what we were doing, to show them the results, to show them the progress, and it took a bit, because it took us a while to make a model. You can imagine trying to make a model with all of our things, and all of our requirements. And once we got it rolling, then the key managers could come in and ask some questions like, what if we do this, or what if we change this, or what if we say we're only going to have this much floor space, it can only accommodate this many machines. And they could see that in the matter of a week or so, we could come back and say, well, here's what your factory's going to look like. And so getting them involved early on, and then showing them what it could do, seemed to give them a cultural shift. And they kind of realized, oh, well, this is actually working and helping us. So I guess, trying to convince people to keep things after you leave, like it's still there, they're still using it. And I think it was because they actually materially participated in the decisions, the use of it, and saw the benefit of it. So to get, if you can all get your upper management, even if participation is nothing more than, look, okay, come for 30 minutes when I show you the final results of this junk we've been working on for 6 months, but you can see the impact, the value, and where, what kind of conclusions we made, seem to make a difference. It's just, you're right, it may be hard to do that. Anyway, that's not really related to this chapter except for the building materials. So we'll discuss MRP, DRP, distribution requirements planning, and amount to promise, these kind of things. In fact, they got a little more here next. We'll do it in about 40 minutes. So we're going to do planning and control from the master schedule down to what it needs to be on the floor, and how do you relate a monthly schedule to a week-by-week planning, and how do you relate that to what you need to order, when you need to order it, and things like that. So this is one of those confusing figures again, but you can see what they're doing. You've got your sales, operations, your forecasting. That's going to relate to a master's production schedule. What do we need to make to meet these either booked orders that we already know we're selling, or our forecasts, or whichever is worse. And then how does that schedule relate to the materials that we need, whether they're materials we're producing or whether they're materials we're ordering? And so that's going to flow down to production activity or vendor orders. Okay, so you can see how it's gonna flow down from the top based on what you think you need to have available. So we're gonna have a master schedule, that's the block in the middle there. And then the master schedule is gonna predict the overall resource levels based on your sales and your forecast. So you're gonna know when you need things, how they're related to other parts of your organization, being able to commit to an order, commit to a time frame when things will be completed, and you know what your inventory level is now and in the future. And you can see, in fact, from the whole perspective of this chapter, they're tending to talk about things from a perspective of items, components, parts, pieces in inventory. But don't let it stop there. This master schedule could relate to other resources as well, people, machines, locations, anything, anything that you can tie to your bill of materials and the activities associated with assembling a part or subassembly or component could be related, just like we do in here with inventory and things. It's easier to look at it from a thing perspective, but it doesn't have to be things. So don't be stuck on that, and don't be hung up on it being particular. So here's what we're gonna work from for this chapter. So we've got some partial sales and operation plans. Okay, right? We've got a basic plan of what we think we're gonna, a demand for our products, how much we're gonna produce, what might be in inventory, and this demand might be a combination of truly booked orders and forecast orders. We spend time on forecasting, and then we want to relate that down. This is a monthly or quarterly or some more grainier prediction, as always, and then we need to relate that down to what we're going to produce, say on a week-by-week basis, or maybe, and we don't have to restrict it to weeks, maybe it's day by day, so we can know, this day we got to do this to meet this by next week or whatever. So we're going to break it down: demand, production, inventories, amount to promise, different things that are of concern to us. When to order, orders received. So we'll look at the math that relates these things. So we'll have a forecasted demand, we'll have book orders, inventory levels, how much we're going to produce, and then units available to promise. Yeah, that's what can you sell. So we've already spent a whole chapter on forecast. What is it? Our best estimate of what the demand will be in the future. That's what it is. It's an estimate. A booked order, the contrast there is that's something that's actually on the books. We've already had an order. We know we've got to sell that. So these are, more solid, say, than the forecasted demand. And then the production schedule is what we're going to be finished when, and so we can either meet the booked orders or meet what we might think is an anticipated demand, and also drive our planning activities so that we can make things in a timely manner. So here. So the first of the equations are going to be a series of equations they look at relating inventory and amount to promise, because the two things that that are important to calculate. And they're not difficult at all. So the first equation that they're looking at in this materials requirement planning is inventory. So what all they're doing is saying, hey, the inventory in a new period T is the inventory from the last period plus what we plan to make, obviously, minus what we're going to sell. And so what we're going to sell could be one of two things. And this little max function, all they're trying to say is, we're trying to predict the future, right? We don't know what we're going to sell in the future, so let's be conservative. So either let's pick the biggest of the two, either the biggest of the total orders we've got booked or our forecast. I recognize that orders booked is a more solid number than the forecast, but hopefully we spent the whole chapter on forecasting. Hopefully you're not an idiot at forecasting. And so if you're forecasting more than you booked, gosh, let's rely on that and be conservative. So you can see my inventory in the next period is going to be what I start out with plus what I made minus what I got rid of, and we'll be conservative on that stance. You'll see in the amount to promise, they'll take a conservative approach as well. That's just fine. It makes sense to be conservative, I think. To me, the most damaging thing you can do is promise something and not have it. And so, you know, you'd rather, as a company, even as a government company like Y12, we'd rather tell somebody up front, look, I can't get that by that date, rather than say, oh yeah, it's fine, and then come up that date and miss it. And, you know, you'd rather have that from Amazon, wouldn't you? I mean, worst thing is Christmas and you place an order and you don't get it by December 25th. You'd rather just go somewhere else, get another present or something like that. So here's a partial master schedule for the Meltomatic snowblower. So what they're going to do now, yeah, the next like about 10 view graphs, they're going to look at a couple of these equations, the inventory and the amount to promise on a fictional product here, this Meltomatic snowblower. So you got weeks leading up to Christmas, say, and we've got a forecasted demand and a booked orders and an inventory and what we're going to make. So this fictional company alternates products, so we're only making snowblowers every other week. So we're going to look at how these are calculated. So right now, just, okay, look at it. Yeah, I'm not going to do that here. In a minute, when I get down to one of the other examples, I'm going to split the screen and keep the tables on held, because the calculations refer back to the table, and it's either that or do this, which will drive you crazy. So anyway, so one of the fields we're going to fill in is the amount to promise, or available to promise. And so you can imagine what that is. That's what you would supply to your sales organization and tell them, look, you know, we've only got this many that we can promise in this time frame. Don't sell more than we can make, or if you do, add some caveats that these are back ordered, or it's going to take an extra, you know, move them out several weeks. And so, how do you calculate that? Well, that's simple. Here's the equation. So this is for week 1. So for the beginning week, the amount you can promise is what you've got in inventory already in hand, plus what you're going to make that week, minus what you've got booked all the way into the future up till period Z, and period Z is when you're going to make some more. So for example, here in this fictional schedule they had here, you know, if you're sitting here, you've got 2 periods before you make any. So initially they're saying, look, you're able to promise only what you got in hand or what you're going to make until the next time, minus what you're committed to in the future. You can promise everything else. That makes sense. It's basically what you haven't sold. You know, what you got on hand, what you're going to make, minus what you've already sold. That's the first week. Okay. Then any subsequent weeks between this week and when you make things again, they're going to be conservative. They're saying, well, and they've got a couple of figures in the next 2 view graphs to explain this too. They're going to say, well, because it's the second week or the third week, and we weren't sure whether we were going to sell what we had booked or what we had forecast, let's assume the worst case is we sold everything, okay? And so now in subsequent weeks, all you have to promise is what you're going to make minus what you got booked in the future. That's the best. That's the most conservative approach. And granted, we recognize that is conservative because you've said each week we sold our whole inventory. We didn't carry over any, and that's probably not true. But if we're going to not violate this what we call the worst sin and promise something we can't deliver, this is the conservative approach. And we do that because I know you're right. There are some inventory that you could probably promise, but no, we'll be conservative. They got 2 pictures to illustrate this. So let's see. Going back to the snowblowers, the first week you had 100 snowblowers left over in inventory, and I don't think they showed that on this table, did they? Yeah, they did up here. The beginning inventory was 100 back in week 44, so now we're going to look at what can we promise in this first week. All right, so they say, okay, we had 100 in inventory. We're going to make 300 in week 45. So that gives us a total of 400 snowblowers. But in week 45, we had 170 orders. In week 46, we had 165 orders already booked. So our total orders already on the book are 335. So in order to be conservative, the most we want to promise is 65. So you see how you're building this schedule. Now I can see how other organizations might have another rule. You know, maybe they say, look, we only want to promise 80% of these because a certain amount of them we have to rework or something like that. I can see you don't, when I look at things like this, don't think that, well, this is the only way to do it, and by golly, if I don't do it this way, I'm wrong. I can see many other approaches that are viable, and it would depend on your business and your understanding of your business as to what you might do. Or maybe you multiply by 1.2 because we always make extra each week with overtime or something. So now for the following week, so this is week 45. Now how about for one of the following weeks? We said that we can't be sure what we've got left over from the previous week because we don't know if we just sold what we had booked or was our forecast better. So let's just assume we sold it all. Okay, so, we're gonna make 300 snow blowers in week 47. In week 47, we had 140 committed already booked. In week 48, we have 120 committed, so that's 260 commitments already. So basically, in that week, we can only promise 40 if we're gonna try to be conservative. That's a simple calculation. So now you can go through this table and, build out your available to promise with just adding what your booked orders are. Yep, there they are. Or looking at your forecasted demand if it's the first week. And then we can calculate our inventory based on, what our ending inventory minus what we've sold and or what we forecasted to sell, what we made. See here, let's see, 530, and then we've got this book, so 305. Yep. 315. Yep. 100 to begin with. Promise was 65, which was the difference between the inventory. Let's see, it was the inventory we had plus what we made minus the booked in the future. It'll be 530 minus that. Let's see, any inventory, what we made, 530 minus 205. All right, let's see. 530 minus 305. Let's see now. How come I can't point that out to you? Let's see. So our available book on that month. I'm reading that wrong. I'm sorry. I'm reading. It has to be the inventory from the past, right? The 100 week 44 plus what we made in that week 300. Yeah. Minus the future booked. So that's 400 minus the future booked, which is 305, right? I'm going to calculate my 140 plus 120. No, that's right. 170 plus 165, which was, these two, yes. I'm reading my charts wrong, yeah. So I've got 100 in inventory. I'm going to make 300. That's 400. I got 170 that I promised in that week itself and 165 in that week, yeah. All right, so 235, it makes 65. So past inventory for week 44 plus what we're making this week minus what we booked in this week minus what we booked in the future week. That's how you got there. Something And our booked, and our ending inventory was the previous inventory plus what we made, which is 400, minus what we think we've lost, which is the booked order since it was more than the forecast, made 230. All right. 100 plus 300 minus that equals that. So you can see how you can march on and do that. You have to pick through it to see, to be careful which direction. So let's try it again, another example. So here we've got a hiking gear, and so now we've got forecasted demand, orders, booked orders. We want to calculate the inventory and the amount we're going to make. Alrighty, so let's see. This is one, probably I should pull up the table. So, oh no, they filled it in good enough, right. So our inventory would be the previous inventory plus what we make minus the matching of those two. So so look at week 37, for example. So week 37, that'd be this week. So we'd have our previous inventory plus what we make minus either the biggest of those two. So yeah, let's see how that works. Okay. So for week 37, we started out with 2,000. We didn't make any, and we want to pick the biggest of those two, either the booked or the forecast. Yeah, so we have 500. So then week 38, we're going to start with 500. We're going to make 4,500 and the maximum of those two. So I'll look back at that. Yeah, so you can see these equations in how they work. So we had 500 here now. Right, we're going to pick that as what we think is our demand since it's bigger. So you can work through it. Available promise for that week would have been 2,000 plus what we made plus the 1,422. It's 1,422 was what you booked so far. So that's going to be available promise. Now the new available promise is going to include some that you made. Yeah. Now we make some minus the total demand for the next weeks until we make again. I should have done this, yeah. So we're going to make 4,500, and then we've got this total book for the next 3 weeks till we make again. That's where that available promise came from. There. So you can work through each of these and see where each of these came in. So it's simple plan, really. Simple way to plan on what you need. So here, this is it filled in. So yeah, so going to go through and calculate and see how each of them are done. So now you can see the use of this. So now you've got a prediction of what your inventory is going to be, relate that to storage, or if here we had sales, we know how much we could promise to deliver when. So we've also wanted to find the planning horizon, because that's where you're going to look out into the future and calculate what you need when based on the lead times on the product or the manufacturing times. And so that's going to determine how far back you look or how far forward you look. I've already said this. So we're going to take that master schedule and relate it to planned orders for parts or things that we need to assemble. And then there's going to be dependent demand and independent demand. And then we're going to use that to monitor our resource requirements like people, machines, machine time, raw materials, those kind of things. So we're going to do this through the bill of materials, which just relates what goes into a product, and then what goes into sub-assemblies and what are the components, and it could be, like I said, time or other resources. And then we're going to work backwards through the bill of materials, and by working backwards through it, you explode it. If a thing is made of component or a sub-assembly A and B, then sub-assembly A is made of all these parts. Eventually you work back till you get down to the bottom, whether the bottom is either a raw material, something you buy and make, or it's a component that you buy from someone else, it's another supplier. So the example they want to work through is this King Philip chair. This is not yet a couple of units I'll split them. So the King Philip chair's got these parts, two front legs, two back legs, two cross members of seat, and 3 of these back slats. Yeah. And so this is your components that you're going to assemble, and this is one you order from outside. So let's look at our bill of materials, I think is the next thing. Yeah. Right, so you've got a chair, that's the level 0, that's the thing you make. And then underneath that, you've got the leg assembly and the seat assembly in the back. So this is those front 2 legs, and this is the seat itself, and this is the back. And that's level 1. Is that food for us?
Maybe. Is Carla in here?
Yeah, this is where she.
There's Carla.
Good, I thought we weren't getting food today, right?
That's pretty hilarious. It's supposed to be brown bag.
We'll let him set it out, and then we'll get it. And then you break the leg assembly up into, there was 2 legs and 1 crossbar, and the seat dead ends. It doesn't have anything because you're ordering it from somebody. You're not ordering the cloth. You're not, if you were making it, you had to get the cloth and the foam and the wooden base. That's fine, but no, it's its own thing coming from somebody else. And then the back has 2 side rails, the cross member on the bottom, and 3 back slats. So now we've exploded it. And so we can use this to relate. Yeah, look, they've got time shown on here too. It takes 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 1 week, 1 week here. So you can also get your time, your critical path, for example. like, down through here, 1, 1, 1, 2, you can see you've got to go back at least 4 weeks here, 3 weeks down this path, 1, 2, 4 weeks here. And then if we wanted to, we could have people, or hours, or dollars, or any other kind of resource on here. So that's an exploded bill of materials. So now let's go back to the master schedule. So here, let's see, we're gonna make, yeah, so we're gonna focus on week 5, the way it is. So we wanna have, here, yeah, we wanna have 500 chairs in week 5, yeah, to sell. So this is what this example is going to be predicated around that. Sometime 5 weeks, in week number 5, we want to sell 500 chairs. So the first thing we knew from the bill of materials is if we want, you know, any chair in a given week, we got to start putting it together 1 week ahead of time. You know, it takes a week to assemble. It's a slow group, I guess. So right, so that's the statement here. To have finished chairs at the beginning of week 5, they got to start assembling chairs at the beginning of week 4. All right, so we'll work backwards from there. 26. So okay, so yeah, here. In fact, this is a way to look at it. So you got right, finished chair 1 week, back assembly here, back slab. So this is why I said you're kind of 4 weeks back, right? 2 weeks to get the side rails and the cross members from whoever you're getting them from. Either you're making them inside or you're ordering them. And then 1 week to put the leg assembly together, and then 1 week to finish the chair. So yeah, there's like a critical path, or here's a critical path, either one. The seats are okay as long as you place the orders in the right place. So now we can use this to get a backward schedule. All right, so you guys want to go grab some food, and then we'll talk about this, because you know, you don't have to take notes. I don't think so. Unless you want to, however you want to do it, yeah, get some food. You got me hungry, right? Plus, I tell you what, it'll let me, this is where I want to bring up the split screen too.